Hi, this is Sean Mullery from Electronic Engineering at IT Sligo, and in this lesson I'm going to further investigate the linked list program that I gave an overview of in the last lecture. So we have the linked list program in front of me, and I showed you already the structure that makes up each link in the list itself. What we've also done here is we made a few type defs, one for the struct list node itself, so we can make one. So we just have a capital L for list node here, and therefore we can use that later on if we might want to make an instance or a version of a struct. And you'll notice that this is outside main, so it means we can use it anywhere within the program. And we've also made a type def for a pointer called using the list node there, which is just list node PTR. So we'll be able to use that as for making any pointers that we want to make, such as you can see that there list node PTR called SPTR, so we can use that term there to make a pointer. Now, there are 5 functions apart from main that we have. So one is for inserting an item in the list. So if we want to make basically a new one, and we want to insert the new character that we want to put into the list, we send it to that function. And what we also send is this one here, SPTR, and the S stands for the start. So basically that's the start pointer, or the first item in the list. We send that to it, and we send the character we want to insert. It then goes down through the list and finds the appropriate place to insert it, and it inserts it in the middle of the list and then comes back to us. Okay, so that's what the insert function does. Likewise, the delete function, very, very similar. We send it the start pointer for the list, and we send it the value we want deleted. It's going to go down through the list, starting at the start pointer, and jump from point to point with each next pointer and next pointer to the next structure in the list. And if it finds the value at any point, it's going to delete that item and then link up either side of that to make sure that it jumps that link, and then it frees up any memory associated with that, and so on. We have a function here which is useful called isEmpty. And remember, functions with kind of doing words like that, with verbs, are asking a question: is the list empty? And what we can do is we can send that a list node pointer there. So we send it the pointer, and I think I'm probably missing a little asterisk on that one, although it's not in their book either. But it probably doesn't matter too much, because they're only names on them anyway at that point. So we can send it the start pointer, and that will return an int here to tell us that it's either empty or it's not empty. So we'll check that function in a while, and we'll see is it a 0 or a 1 or whatever that it returns to tell us whether it's empty or not empty. And it'll know if it's empty by basically if the very first if the head of the list is pointed straight to null, we know that there's no items in the list. What's very useful is to be able to print the list, and you saw that when the program was running, that we could print out each of the items in the list. So that print list function gets called fairly regularly, and what we do is we send it the current pointer that we want to have printed, and it'll then go and print from that point on. Again, we'll be looking in detail at that function. We also have this one, void instructions void. So we don't send this any information. We just call this function whenever we want to print out that set of instructions to the user, which is telling them what number they want to print in what input they want. Do they want to insert something? Do they want to delete something? Or do they want to end the program? So that's what the instructions function is for. And again, as I said, we'll look at all these functions in more detail. Some of them are very simple, but the likes of the insert and the delete are quite complex. So we'll be looking at those in detail, as I say. Now, what we'll also do though here is we'll look at the main function, and you can see the main function there in my version of it, and it's slightly different from what's in the detailed book, simply because I just have a tendency to arrange my code in a slightly different way. So mine goes from down to line 67 from line 20. So we're talking about 47 lines of code there in the main function. And what we have here is we start by making a new list node pointer called start pointer. And what we do is immediately we assign that null. So this is basically the head of the list. We've made a list, but it's empty. We've assigned the first version of it null. So it's just it's not pointed to anything. It's not pointed to any actual information. It's not pointed to a real struct yet. We also have an integer here for choice, and that's the choice that the person wants. Do they want to insert, do they want to delete, or do they want to finish? And we have a character here called item, and basically that's going to be the item that we're going to insert into the list at any given time. So the first thing we do is we call the function instructions, and that function, as I said, and we'll look at it in a few minutes time, but or possibly in the next video, we'll see how we break it up. But if we call the instructions function, it will print out the information about, do you want to insert, do you want to delete, or do you want to end? Okay, and if we may as well take a look at it now, because it's so simplistic that there's nothing much to show in it. So there it is there, lines 69 to 75. Enter your choice, and you can see I've got it spread across 3 or 4 lines because there's a lot of information in it. 1 to insert an element in the list, 2 to delete an element, 3 to end. No return or anything on this because it's a void return, so it just returns straight off. Okay, so that's the instructions, and we have a little printf just to put a little question mark, like what do you want to do. Now at that point we do a scanf, and we do a scanf for a %d, and here's where I mentioned in the previous video that if you enter a letter, that'll cause a bit of a screw up in it because it's expecting a number. So even though we're checking for invalid entries, we're only checking for invalid numbers, not if you put in a letter. But that goes into choice. So you can see the ampersand there in front of choice because it's the address of choice. So that's going to be our choice there. And what we have is we have a while loop here that this while loop continues to run while the choice is not equal to 3. Remember that down in my function here, if the person enters a 3, they wish to end. You can see it there. So if the person enters a 3, they wish to end. So therefore, while we're not equal to 3, we're going to keep running the program. Now inside the while loop, and bear in mind now that the while loop starts here on line 29, and always a good idea to indent your code. You can see how I've indented my code, and I insist on that for a reason. If we follow this line down, we can see exactly where that while loop ends. It ends there at line 64. So we have a very good idea now of what's inside the while loop, and it's everything from line 30 down to 63. In that we have a switch statement, and the switch statement I think you've seen good many times before. It's like a load of if-elses, except for instead of having if-else, what we do is we just have we put in switch, and we put in what we want to test, which is choice. So choice tests, is it the first case? Is choice a 1? Is it the second case? Is choice 2? Or down here, is it the default case, which is it's neither 1 nor 2? Okay. Now you might be saying, well, what about the 3? Well, the 3 will get taken care of by coming out of there and going back to the while loop here. The choice will what will occur is that it will just end the loop, so it'll never get into the switch statement in the first place. Okay, so we go into the switch statement. If it's the first case, which is a 1, what do we want to do? Well, we want at that stage to insert a new value into the linked list. So we do that by firstly asking the user to enter a character. What the user then does is they enter a character here via the scanf, and you'll notice that the scanf has a little /n at the beginning of it there. That'll just put it onto the next line. For that, I'm just trying to find it here in the set of the book. Sure. Yep. So that's just formatting really what's going to happen there, but that value is going to go into item, and item will then be sent to the insert function. So what we do is we send it the start pointer, the address of the start pointer here, okay, which we have up there. That's the very first one here, and we also send it the item itself. Okay, so we send it that, and what we do at that point then is the insert function is going to insert the item into the list, hopefully correctly. Hopefully it finds the memory for it and all that, and we'll have a look at that function in a later video. When it returns from the insert, what we want to do is we want to print the entire list at that point, and at that point we do we send the start pointer to the print list, and what it will do then is it'll start to print out the information, and it'll print out from the first one here, the start pointer, to the next one, to the next one, to the next one. Okay. Now I just noticed here that what Untitled have done is, in this case they're sending the ampersand of start pointer, and in this case they're just sending start pointer itself. So let's have a look at the way they've written the functions up above. In print list, you can see here we don't have the asterisk, and in insert we do. Now I'll check through their notes in a moment and just see, is there a particular reason why they've done that? It doesn't seem to make sense that they have a different syntax in one place or another. So I'll see if there's a mention to why they've done that. I think I would have had a tendency to put them both as an asterisk here. So in other words, put an asterisk there, and then in the bottom here just have dealt with them both the same. So in the print list have either sent them the ampersand, or the other way around, have sent the address or whatever. But so I'm not entirely certain why they've gone and done those functions slightly differently, but they have nonetheless. It's not completely obvious to me, so I'll take a look at that in a few minutes, and when I come to those functions in the next video, if there's anything obvious from the Untitled book, I'll mention that. But in any case, so what that case one does is it puts an item into the list and then prints it. The second case then, if it's a 2 that's put in, the first thing we do is we have an if statement to check, is the list empty? And we send it the start pointer for this, in other words, just to come back. Now, you can see this is, if it's empty, we expect it to come back with something non-zero to say that that's true, okay? So we're saying if it's not empty, with the not here. So what we basically want here is that if it's not empty, we're then going to go and start to search it and ask for which one do you want to look for and delete it. But obviously, if it's empty, there's no point in doing that. Clearly, we just print out the list is empty, so you have nothing more to delete. So don't bother asking for a letter to look for. Okay. So if it's not empty, we ask for the character to be deleted, which character you'd like, and we take in that character and we put it into item. And then we call the delete function here with the pointer to the start of the linked list, and we send the item, which is the letter that you've put in, the one that we're looking for. The delete function then goes through the list, and if it finds that, it deletes it. And if it doesn't find it, it gets to the end of the list and it finishes one way or the other. However, if it does find it, it's going to send us something back to say that it was deleted. So it'll send us back a non-zero number to say that this if statement is true. Okay, so what's in here is true, and therefore we've managed to delete something. If, however, it goes the entire way through the list and doesn't find what it's looking for, it'll return a 0, which is not true, and we will pop straight down to the else here on line 47, and we'll say that the character was not found. Okay, so one way or the other, this delete function will go through all the links in the list, and it will only return when either it's found the item and deleted it, in which case it'll say it'll return a non-zero value such as a 1, and we'll print out that we've deleted that, and we'll print the list again, or it'll come back and say that item wasn't found if it's managed to get to the end of the list without finding the item. And then obviously we have the list is empty, which was the other else statement. Now you can see here again where the indentation is very, very useful. We have an if statement going right down to there, so we can see the one that it's matching with, whereas these if statements in here, we can see that's matching with that and that's matching with that. Okay, and again we break out of that. The default then is if the person enters anything other than that, we say that's an invalid choice, and we give them the instructions again so that they're ready to go to put in another value. Now once we get to line 59, and remember we'll go up to the top here, that's the switch statement. Okay, so once we get out of the switch statement again, we put up another question mark looking for information. You can see I've put instructions in there and it's just commented out because it's not in the original title notes. But I found that after you put in 4 or 5 items, you'd forgotten what the list might be, 1, 2, and 3. So I had it there that I would print the instructions each time. I just took it out again, but you can, in your own, you could comment it back in if you wanted. And then I have a scanf to take in the next choice. So if the choice is 1 or 2, then the while loop will run again. If it's 3, it doesn't run and finishes at that point. And if it's 4, 5, 6, 7, and any other number, it goes into the choice, but it goes straight to the default and says, no, run again. You have an invalid one, give the instructions, and back out here and give your choice again. But if it's a 3 at that point, we finish at that point because the while loop is done, and it says end of run, and we're finished. So you can see how the main loop works here, where we would constantly go through items, either inserting or deleting, and then we decide, no, we're finished, and we're going to finish the program. So I'm going to finish the video just with the main loop there, and in the next videos I'm going to look at some of the different functions that are involved in this, such as the insert and the delete.